Children are gearing up for summer break. World Cup is halfway through. It's the last Sunday of June 2014, and we're so glad you chose to spend today with us. Hi, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and you're tuned into Jamaica Magazine. We have a wonderful show lined up for you, packed with useful information. What am I talking about? The debate on the ganja law reform is such a topical subject that we have to repeat last week's much talked about discussion with Justice Minister Mark Golding. Also, not everyone is cut out to be a civil servant, but some do it with professionalism and joy. We give you the story of Valerie Simpson. Stay with us. We have those stories and so much more inside the pages for you.
We want a productive Jamaica. We are not productive Jamaicans. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity is the way to go for all us Jamaicans. Small business, big business, old and young, we are tell every woman and man. We want growth and prosperity for a better nation with a building plan. So we can build our product and sell our product and put more money in our hand. Our economy can rise to a level and build a better nation. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity.
Productivity, Pathway to Prosperity. A message brought to you by the Jamaica Productivity Center, a department of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
We have to set up an institution like a body like the sugar industry, the coffee industry, where we can sell it through the export department so people can earn money from it, rather than have one company come in and buy up all the product and we have to work for them and get no money at the end of the day. So it's best that way to set it like the sugar board or the coffee board.
The government earn medicine and other important sources, you know what I mean? Like urban markets, you know, the urban market bit, you know, your health, and I mean the hospital use it, medicine and things like that. So.
The government can always probably open a factory in order to manufacture it and to process it, and so people will get jobs more now, and so persons will be able to earn money in order to supply or provide for themselves and their family.
Make them plant it and sell it locally, and them keep an eye on it.
Plant it and send it to go make medicine. Invest on it. Instead of them destroy it, them invest on it because it's a good medicine for all asthma. It's good for cancer. It's good for a lot of things. Make soap, it make hair oil, it make shampoo. You know, I just them to know how to angle it.
The government, well, they have to go create farm, basically, for ganja, and they have to have particular store that can distribute it. An authorized person to sell it for them, like pharmacies and a permanent drugstore.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we talk about ganja law reform. We have with us the Minister of Justice, Senator Mark Golding, and he recently spoke about the Cabinet's acceptance of certain changes to the law having to do with marijuana. Today he will expand on that. We thank you for your company. Minister, good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Why would the government be thinking about decriminalizing ganja apart from its medical use when the scientific evidence still shows that there are health risks to the smoking of ganja?
Well, first of all, the proposals are that essentially what we're planning to do is to take some of the more noxious social effects of the current rules, the current law, by modifying the criminal penalties. So we're not legalizing or even strictly speaking decriminalizing personal use of small quantities. What we're saying is that personal use and smoking of ganja will be treated in a different way by the law, so that we're talking about making it a non-arrestable offense, taking those cases out of the court system by having it pay a fine that's payable by way of a ticket online or through the tax office, and not attracting a criminal record. Treating it as
persons won't go to jail.
No, persons won't go to. That's right. They won't, and they won't have a permanent blight or blot, I should say, on their record, which has been a problem in the past. And also, as you know, we have the courts, especially the RM court, deals with these cases now. They're overburdened with cases, and part of the justice reform process is to find ways of taking cases out of the courts that really can be better dealt with elsewhere. So we have restorative justice, for example. We try and deal with certain minor offenses through a procedure outside of court, and we have a child diversion program we're coming with, and this is really part of that general thrust. So we're not making ganja a legal substance as such, but we're trying to find a way of treating it in a way that doesn't have such a negative impact on those who are caught using it. And we wish to discourage smoking.
You wish to discourage
Yes,
smoking?
we do.
You're still saying that?
Yes, we do. So smoking is in public won't be allowed, as it is no longer allowed for cigarettes. Smoking in private won't be allowed as such. What we've said is possession. We won't have two offenses. The offense is possession of a small quantity, and that's what becomes a ticketable offense, payable outside the court. And we hope, as we develop the medical marijuana industry, that many countries around the world, and is permitted by the treaties that we've signed, as long as it's regulated with proper monitoring and reporting and so on. As we develop that, there's revenue that the government can make from that, and some of that revenue will be allocated towards discouraging smoking, and smoking ganja in particular, especially by adolescents.
So and all public education program.
Yes, they will properly fund, and it should be
ganja.
funded to discourage the smoking of ganja, especially by adolescents and other vulnerable. Right now, as everyone knows, smoking ganja is prevalent in Jamaica, and many adolescents smoke it, even though their brains are not fully developed, and the science shows that is not a good situation. But there's zero money being allocated towards discouraging that. We have money spent on, encouraging safe sex, encouraging people not to drink and drive, and smoking, encouraging people not to smoke cigarettes. Nothing on. So we want to complement that by making sure that the message is strong out there that vulnerable people, especially adolescents, shouldn't be smoking.
So that government's thrust in this area of ganja law reform could actually strengthen the anti-ganja smoking initiative.
Absolutely. Which
is
to
provide funding for
That's right. I was a little disappointed when the MAJ came out so quickly against the policy, because I do believe that it will actually, from a public health perspective, improve the situation that now exists, where it's prevalent and nothing is really being done about it, other than through the criminal law taking a harsh stance towards it, in the sense that it's an arrestable offense and you can be imprisoned if you do. That's not normally the case, but sometimes it does happen, and you get a criminal record. We're taking those aspects out of it, relieving some of the burden on the courts, ensuring that persons who use it recreationally, although it's not lawful and they will get a fine and through a ticket, they will not suffer a permanent blot on their record, and their human rights will be respected. And hopefully, as the medical marijuana industry emerges, funding will be available through that, through the licensing and so on, to strengthen the messaging, discouraging especially adolescent use of ganja, because I think the science shows that it's particularly undesirable to have adolescents smoking ganja.
So there's no difference in between your position and that of the Medical Association of Jamaica, because you are not saying that there is no public health risk to ganja smoking
absolutely
at all.
I fully
You're not
acknowledge
saying
that. I fully acknowledge that there is a public health risk, especially for youngsters. And I think that what we're trying to do, design a more sensible policy for dealing with it. I can understand that the the emotional response or even the trigger response is liberalizing the rules, that's going to encourage more people to smoke. I don't believe that's so. I think people want to smoke ganja now, smoke it in Jamaica.
Anywhere.
It's very available and it's very cheap relative to other countries. What we need to do is discourage those who shouldn't be smoking it from smoking it and take some of the negative social consequences out of the way in which the law treats with people who do smoke it.
But don't you believe that taking away some of the negative social consequences inadvertently encourages the smoking of ganja? And that there might be some persons who, but for these negative social consequences, would smoke it, would take that risk. But because you are removing that, an unintended consequence is an incentive to smoke.
I acknowledge that that is a theoretical risk. And as to whether in practice that will happen, I have my doubts about it. I do think, as I said earlier, that those who want to smoke, smoke already, and that's at all age groups, you know. So I don't think that lessening the penalty is going to encourage anybody who doesn't want to smoke to now start smoking. But on the other hand, you have other substances that are more dangerous, like alcohol and tobacco, which are lawful, and people advertise and all of that, and that, you know, deaths from those substances and the abuse are far more extensive than from ganja. So the fact that a substance has a negative health effect doesn't necessarily mean that the criminal law ought to be the way in which we deal with it. And I think the way to deal with this is to have proper messaging, proper public education around it. We need funds to do that. We hope to get those funds from having a regulated medical marijuana industry, which will generate funds that the government can use for this. And as I said before, avoiding the problem that we now have, where we have literally thousands of young people, especially young men, who have been, you know, found with a spliff or a small or draw weed or whatever in the past. They've been gone some of them have been jailed over it. Some of them have have a criminal record over it. They can't travel to certain countries. They can't get certain jobs, even in the public sector, because of the record that they have. So we want to deal with that.
Minister of Justice making a seemingly strong case for ganja law reform. He continues that case when we come back from a first break on Issues and Answers.
Businessmen and women, members of the MSMEs, no longer do you have to visit several government agencies to register a company or business name. Visit the COJ. They are willing and prepared to assist you in filling out the new business registration form, more commonly known as the super form.
The overwhelming response from the majority of our customers is, why did this take so long to happen? There are persons who actually waited until January 2nd to come here to do their business because they wanted to avoid going to multiple government departments.
Click on ocrjamaica.com for more details.
Thanks for rejoining us for Issues and Answers. The Minister of Justice, Senator Mark Golden, is talking to us primarily about the ganja law reform issue. Minister, the benefits of the medical marijuana industry, you would say that the benefits are so significant as to demand reform in our laws?
I think so. I think our economy needs whatever industry it can get. You know, we need to grow our way out of this huge debt that we have. And the fact is that Jamaica has a brand through reggae music, Bob Marley, and etc. Years and years from the 60s coming up, and maybe even before. That, you know, an association with ganja. We can't deny this. So I do think that there are, you know, and the medicinal uses of ganja are being increasingly promoted internationally. Even Dr. Sanjay Gupta has run two long documentaries on CNN. He was formerly hostile to it, and he has now recanted and apologized, and has been indicating that there are some definite medical benefits from certain aspects, certain strains, and so on. So we think that Jamaica,
and the market for it globally is significant.
It is, and access to it is a problem, you know, because of the way in which the laws treat with ganja. So we need to design a policy that is going to allow us to operate or establish an industry here that is compliant with our international obligations. which is accessible as much as possible to grassroots growers as well. We don't want to exclude anybody, and which leverages the brand that we have and our sunlight and our soil and the other natural attributes that we have that could, I think, make our product attractive to the market.
Yes, but you know, Minister, that the drug cartel has been known to certainly to attempt to corrupt medical marijuana production to its own end. So the government would have to be very careful as to the supervision and regulation.
It will have to be, and I mean, it will be done under license, and there'll have to be a monitoring function and so on. My understanding of it is that the medical marijuana industry requires particular strains being grown under controlled conditions and so on. So it should be possible, I believe, to have a properly structured industry which is monitored. And those who are outside of the law and are operating the industry that now exists, and it's an underground industry, that I imagine will continue until such time as it is either eradicated or the law is changed in that area too, internationally.
Yes.
But we're not, my focus at this point is in trying to establish a lawful, regulated industry that pays taxes and that provides a product that the world wants.
And we should mention that these changes have been adopted by Cabinet but have not been passed yet.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for raising that.
So
yes,
people should not just go out and feel
the
that
law has not changed yet.
changed.
And in fact, there are two stages to this. The first stage will be fairly soon because there is a bill that I expect to come to Cabinet for approval to be tabled in Parliament. That should come to Cabinet on Monday coming, which will deal with the expungement of criminal records for small quantities and for smoking of ganja. Yes, both for the past and going forward.
That's good.
And I hope to get that into Parliament within the next week or two.
Okay.
And then the other aspects of it to do with the small quantities and taking that out of the court system and all of that. Well, my target is to try and get a bill by December, but we have a very full legislative schedule with the IMF agreement.
You were very successful last year. The issue of jury reform, some significant things are coming.
Yes, well, we have a problem. We have a delay in our system is an endemic feature of the justice system which we need to try and solve. And some of the problems relate to the difficulty of impaneling juries, especially where there are multiple defendants and so on. So what we're doing is we're modifying some of the rules there as well. We want to increase the jury stipend from $500 a day to $2,000 to encourage more people to come and do that civic duty. We're reducing the categories of persons who are exempt.
Yes,
like civil servants, for example,
won't be exempt anymore.
No, so public servants will have to serve like everybody else. And we're doing a few other things. For example, we are we're combining the voters list and the TRN list to make a master.
You're going to draw people from TRN now?
Yes, to make a master list, which will be a bigger list to create a bigger
So those
pool.
who feel they could escape by not being on the voters list, they won't escape under your proposed
No,
changes?
no, they won't. And they shouldn't want to because it's something that every citizen should be willing to do.
Yes. What about those who are fearful, Minister? This is still a violent country. They're fearful to be on.
Well, I don't know. I'm not aware that jurors have suffered any kind of. I mean, I'm not saying that being a juror doesn't expose you to certain things because we've heard in one celebrated recent case about attempted bribing of jurors and so on. But in terms of bodily harm we haven't really seen that yet, thank God, and I hope we don't. No, we've asked CMS which is Court Management Services, to see, where the funding to pay the additional stipend can be taken from. And once they have, if they're able to give us the okay that yes, they're in a position financially to do it, then there's some paperwork I have to do at that point.
How soon are these changes likely to be enacted?
I don't want to give a date, Ian, because money is very tight.
Okay.
And it's really, that particular reform is being driven by money, the one about the stipend. Okay. The others are legislative, some of them are legislative things which are being worked on.
They're being worked on.
Yes.
Good to have you, Minister.
Thank you for having me.
Minister of Justice, Senator Mark Golden, speaking to us about several issues, ganja law reform as well as jury reform. We thank you for your company. Next week we'll be back. Until then, Ian Boyne wishing you a pleasant day.
I needed help to expand my business, but the banks only wanted to be up in my business. The high interest rates were killing my business, and they never really business with my business.
At the Exim Bank, we have your business needs covered. Our application process is easy, and we provide loans at competitive rates for the productive sector. From renewable energy projects and working capital to plant upgrades or expansion and export financing. Come in and talk to us today. The Exim Bank. On the road to success, you are going to want us in your business.
Next, we highlight the invaluable service of public sector employees through the life of Valerie Simpson, who is a stalwart at the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing.
Civil servants continue to be the engine of government, implementing policies and programs to move the country full speed ahead. With much emphasis being placed on making Jamaica more business-friendly, the focus is on public sector workers to improve their efficiency. And diligent government workers are doing just that. Among them, the Director of Transport Policy in the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing, an outstanding civil servant who has served Jamaica for more than 30 years. Meet Valerie Simpson, the confident yet reserved past student of Alpha Academy. Fresh out of high school, her first job in the public sector was a clerk in the Administrator General's department.
I was never afraid of work. I was very ambitious, and I was never afraid to do anything. I applied to do evening classes at UA, and then while I was working at the Administrator General's department, and then I got a bursary to go in full-time, and then I felt it was time for me to move.
Her next stop was at the Ministry of Mining and Energy, and as they say, the rest is history. In 1998, Ms. Simpson began working in the Transport Ministry as Senior Director of Transport Monitoring and Chief Director of Air Transport. 6 years later, she was promoted to the position of Director of Transport Policy.
My unit deals with the main modes of transport, which is land, air, maritime. Anything to do that requires a cabinet decision or the cabinet the submission has to, we are responsible for drafting or ensuring that the requisite information and liaising with the relevant agencies, that the information is pertinent and before it goes to cabinet.
Her unit also played a pivotal role in the privatization of the Sangster International Airport in 2003. That deal became a model for the development of a public-private policy by the Development Bank of Jamaica and set the groundwork for the pending privatization of the Norman Manley International Airport.
There was no regulatory framework when we were considering the privatization concession of the airport of Sangster. Now there's the Airport Economic Regulation Act, so we're not going to start from zero base now. Having the lessons learned, we know what to look out for, what the government and the people of Jamaica and what the investor would be looking for in such an environment.
Ms. Simpson is also a member of the team overseeing the privatization of the Jamaica Railway Corporation and the Kingston Container Terminal. A number of air services agreements were also cemented with Jamaica under the watchful eyes of this dedicated civil servant. These include agreements with countries like the United States, Brazil, Mexico, the United Kingdom, and Canada. There was also a memorandum of understanding between several agencies under the Voluntary International Maritime Organization Member State Audit Scheme. In essence, this ensured that Jamaica was compliant in a number of areas, including ship safety, certification, and the protection of the marine environment.
Can you remember that we need to send out the letters by tomorrow because we have a deadline for them to respond to us by Monday. So we have a strict deadline. Thank you.
Valerie Simpson has a very good working relationship with her colleagues and is very serious about her work.
With respect to the public service policies and procedures, she is very knowledgeable about those things, and she requires of us on a regular basis or throughout our work to ensure that we do the best we can.
She pays a lot of attention to detail, and she doesn't like anything to be out of place, out of order, not in accordance with procedure. So, she can always be depended on to dot all of the I's and cross all of the T's and go beyond the call of duty if something needs to be done on time in a short time.
Now, one of the things that sets her apart to me is that she's always willing to teach, and not only willing to teach, but she was also willing to learn. So even while I was under her directorship, I always said to her that I've learned so much from you, and in return she would say, you would have no idea how much I've learned from you. Prior to coming into the service, I had the perception of what a typical civil servant was like. Having met Ms. Simpson, among others within the ministry, she showed me that, just as much as the attitude of workers in the private sector were businesslike, that's how she was. Very businesslike, very purposeful.
Those qualities led to national recognition in 2013.
Our first runner-up is Valerie Simpson from the Ministry of Transport.
I must be honest with you. I am not a person that likes to be in the spotlight.
To be honest, she herself wasn't so gung-ho like, oh yes, I'm nominated, but I was happy to support the nomination and write the statements, and when she came out as first runner-up, I wasn't surprised because she really is a dedicated, bona fide civil servant.
With just a few years to retirement, having attained an executive master's in business administration from the University of the West Indies, Ms. Simpson is determined to do what she can to train young professionals.
As a manager, you have to put your best foot forward, even in the most trying of circumstances. You have to even walk the corridors and listen and see, give and render some advice.
Valerie Simpson, Director of Transport Policy in the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing, a devoted and efficient civil servant, pushing for greater productivity, pursuing excellence in the public service.
We are the champions of the world. Driver every duty vehicle on the road or the bridge. Listen the message. Don't overload. Warrior operator, haulage contractor, a trailer driver. Don't overload. Truck overload destroys our roads. And when me say, check your speed, check your state, make sure you're not overweight. Take the time to make it safe, even if you're little late. Some of the road they leany, sinky, twisty. Truck overload destroys our roads. So drive a heavy duty vehicle on the road or the bridge. Listen the message.
A message from the Island Traffic Authority and the National Road Maintenance Fund.
Wouldn't it be nice if our roadways became accident-free? No loss of lives. Well, maybe not totally, but it is possible to at least achieve close to that. Road fatalities in years past have towered above the 300 mark, and that's too much to bear. We can all help to lessen that figure if we walk, ride, and drive with care. As road users, we just need to be a bit more courteous when using the roadways. Always be disciplined on our roads. Avoid confrontations. Be kind to other users. Sometimes we might be in a hurry, but resist the temptation. Don't make matters worse. Obeying the rules of the road is all it takes for you to save a life. Do this and make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
The Land Administration and Management Program LAMP is relocating to 16A Halfway Tree Road as of Monday, June 16, 2014. LAMP's new opening hours as of June 16 will be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. The new telephone number is 633-7300. Until then, only the collection of documents and telephone queries will be facilitated at the existing Hope Gardens office. During the relocation period, LAMP may be reached at the following telephone numbers. You may also email lamp@mwlecc.gov.jm.
Let's do as this week's quote of the week suggests. Be happy with what you have and are. Be generous with both, and you won't have to hunt for happiness. Words from former British leader William E. Gladstone. This is where we close the pages of today's magazine. Thanks for watching, and don't forget we value your feedback, so drop us a line. Send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm. You may also follow us on Twitter at JIS News. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson, wishing you a wonderful day.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.